Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be assessing the Egyptian political and economic outlook for 2023 and 2024 as well. We're going to be focusing on the political and economic files tonight. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at the main story making the news today. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli held a press conference following a cabinet meeting in the new administrative capital today, during which he said the government had succeeded in taking concrete steps according to the state's ownership program. The Premier noted that the state focuses on boosting the private sector to lead development process in securing the hard currency. He highlighted that the government had amended the investment law according to investors' needs, adding that all investment projects are enjoying incentives both after and before amending the law. The Prime Minister said the government had extended the establishment of investment companies working in energy to 9 years, and that industrial activities would have a special incentive reaching 55% from income tax. According to Madbouli, amendments in competition securing law and all procedures needed to facilitate actions for investors were finalized. Earlier, the cabinet meeting headed by Madbouli was held to follow up on measures taken to implement the directions of President Sisi in the fields of investment, industry, exports, monitoring markets, and the social solidarity umbrella. The meeting discussed a number of political, economic, and social files, as well as the latest developments on the international stage and repercussions of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Governmental initiatives and a number of measures related to increasing the involvement of the private sector in economic activities also topped the agenda of the meeting. This was the main story making the news today, but now focusing on our topic in tonight's episode. Let's assess Egypt's foreign policy for the year 2023 up until now, and for the rest of it, in light of the current economic and political developments taking place all around the world. Let's check out this report, and we'll be right back.
As the war in Ukraine and earlier, the repercussions of COVID-19 pandemic have impacted the international political and economic scene. Egypt's diplomacy steers a steady course in 2023. The world is in a state of upheaval, the like of which has been unseen in decades. Multiple conflicts and crises, from the Ukraine war to economic strains, unaffordable energy costs, breakdowns in food supply chains, and the very real threat of climate change are arriving together and having mutually compounding effects. Moreover, they come on top of long-standing conflicts in various parts of the world, the continuous plagues of terrorism, illegal migration, coup d'etat, and the proliferation of armed groups and militias, all of which are aggravated by the ambitions of non-Arab regional powers and the mounting pressure from the great powers in the context of the sharpening polarization among them. The Arab region is having to face more than its fair share of such challenges, especially given its own problems in Palestine, Syria, Iraq and Yemen, the instability in Sudan, Lebanon and Libya, disputes in Maghreb and Iran's behavior in the Gulf and Turkish adversarial policies in the East Mediterranean. In light of these global challenges with their associated inflationary and supply chain stresses, economists have had to reverse their forecasts for economic growth against this grim and indeed international backdrop. Artificial intelligence, social media, online terrorism, organized crime, human trafficking and terrorism. What has buffered Egypt against such ploys has been its steadfast insistence on the principles of mutual respect and equality in all its foreign dealings, and in its staunch opposition to outstanding meddling in other countries' domestic affairs and attempts to infringe on their sovereignty and independence. Egypt is also a strong advocate of peace and stability in its regional environment, towards which end it promotes a spirit of cooperation, adherence to principles of international law, commitment to international treaties, and support for UN organizations and international cooperation and mutual support. Cairo has thus been able to fend off such pressures by resting on its long-established neutrality, independent will, and commitment to principles of international law. Egypt has managed its development process over the past 10 years in a way that has enabled it to conduct a balanced foreign policy in its various spheres of interest.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here tonight in the studio by His Excellency Dr. Mungi Ali Badr, the Minister, Plenipotentiary and member of the Egyptian Society for the United Nations. Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for you, and have a good debate, and I hope to add something for you and for your viewers.
For sure you will, sir. Your Excellency, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the Egyptian foreign policy. And looking at the political scene nowadays, let's go to our southern neighbor, Sudan, which has been going through a huge military conflict between the RSF, the Radical Support Forces, and the National Army as well. Now, we've been talking about trying to find a peaceful and diplomatic end to such a conflict, but so far no end is coming in sight. We keep talking about a ceasefire for humanitarian aid. What is the future and what is the prospect of ending this conflict? How long will it stay?
Let us say at the beginning that foreign policy for Egypt, it's a balance between what we want, what we need, what our interests, and we should do for our neighbors. Our neighbors could be European countries, Arab countries, African countries. Sudan, it has a very unique situation. So that's why we try to send a message to all the people around us that it's an interior conflict. We don't want anybody to put his nose in this conflict. This is number one. Number two, we don't mind for African Union to interfere, or even the superpower or United Nations, but nobody, no country can interfere to send weapons or to support side against the other side. Unfortunately, Sudanese delegation already doesn't want to complete the negotiation in Addis Ababa because the president of Kenya, they mentioned that he is not neutral. So that's why till now they didn't join the meeting, but they didn't leave Addis Ababa. So that's why maybe they will continue. Maybe they are going to reach a compromise to change the president of the meeting, which I think it's not easy, or to put some principles to be followed for the chairman of the meeting and for all sides. I don't know till now, tomorrow it will be meeting or no, I don't know exactly till now. But Sudan, it should finish by diplomatic way. I don't want war. War, it will be hurt the citizens and also the assets of Sudan. And you know that Sudanese economy is not strong. So that's why maybe it will be affect not only for today, but maybe for coming years, which we don't know. We have some challenge. This is the dams in Ethiopia, and also terrorism. And also there are some groups in Sudan doesn't want the relation to be settled between Egypt and Sudan. So we try our best to settle down the situation in Sudan by diplomatic way. And also we request the others don't interfere in Sudan interior affairs.
Yes. Well, with your experience, Your Excellency, do you think it is a situation or a conflict that has the potential to be resolved pretty soon, or could it take longer than expected?
I hope to be settled down by peaceful way. And also, it's not a matter of Sudanese people. It's a matter of outsiders. The outsiders who push both parts to defeat each other. And also, I think Sudanese people, they are calm people and they are very generous people. And also they love their countries. And I met some people, it's professors and universities, and they mention the key point, which we think this conflict will finish soon, that Sudanese people themselves now, they are supporting their army. This is the turning point of the conflict. And they mentioned that it's a few numbers of the other sides whom attacking the people inside their homes and stealing some shops or something like that. We hope to finish this conflict very soon, because both sides, they are losing, and also we are losing with them. We heard the ministers of some Arab countries supporting, and maybe Wagner's groups, they are there, but it's the wise policy of Egypt, which use the diplomatic way in solving all the problems, regionally and internationally. And we have this kind of policy, which we have to keep our capacity, military, economy, even society, not to interfere, and to keep all our natural resources for one thing, economic development.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue our discussion with His Excellency Dr. Badr, but let's go for a short break and we'll be right back.
Egypt has established fiscal targets for the upcoming 2023-2024 fiscal year that take into consideration the mounting risks in Egyptian economic landscape. These risks include deepening financing gap compounded by sluggish asset sales, renewed outflow withdrawals, impaired foreign exchange liquidity, and the deferred implementation of flexible exchange rates and structural reforms. In the second half of fiscal year 2023, GDP growth in Egypt was driven by the external sector amid solid exports growth enabled by exchange rate developments. The Egyptian pound has lost around 20% of its value against the USD since January 2023. This development has fueled price pressures, which were met by an aggressive central bank response in March when interest rates were hiked to over 5-year highs. Consequently, disposable income has been put under pressure, hurting consumers' budgets and household spending in turn. More positively, the unemployment rate ticked down to 7.1% in Q3 fiscal year 2023 amid higher employment, likely preventing a sharper deceleration of consumption. Meanwhile, the non-oil PMI remained entrenched in contractionary territory and averaged lower in January to May. Inflation surprised markets on the upside and climbed to a near all-time high of 32.7% in May. Similarly, core inflation shot up to 40.3% in May. Headline inflation is set to average more than double from 2022 this year and is not seen returning to the CBE's 5 to 9% target range before 2025. The currency depreciating by more than expected is an upside risk after holding up better than many experts expected during the COVID-19 pandemic. Egypt's economy has suffered a body blow as a result of Russia's war in Ukraine. The crisis built up over the course of 2022 and snowballed at the start of 2023. Since President Sisi took power in 2013, the government has pursued an economic model focused on government-run infrastructure projects funded by debt financing, both foreign and domestic, and led by military-owned companies. The central bank hiked interest rates to contain the resulting inflation and limit capital outflows. The higher rates and lower currency value mean that debt servicing is set to explode. The 2023-2024 budget anticipates that repayments will absorb 56% of the total government spending, and IMF's request that Cairo slow down infrastructure projects in order to reduce pressure on external accounts and inflation is a challenge. Egypt's international partners are supportive of the IMF reform program.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Continuing our discussion with His Excellency Dr. Badr. Now, before we start talking about the economic outlook and the economic policy for Egypt, just want to have a quick look at the Egyptian stance regarding the Russian-Ukrainian conflict that is now in its second year, and Egypt has been keeping itself at an equal and safe distance from all parties involved within this conflict. What is the future, or do you see any sort of change in Egypt's stance regarding this conflict, or what should Egypt do regarding it, and how can we move around it as much as we can, try to mitigate the effects and the repercussions of such a conflict on Egypt politically and economically?
In fact, it's a very important point, and at the same time, it's very sensitive to talk about this conflict and also to talk about Egyptian policy towards this topic. Number one, related Egyptian economy, in fact, we have very excellent steps for building infrastructures, not only for 10 years, but at least for 50 years, these infrastructures. And this will help you to attract foreign investment. Last year, we attract around more than $9 billion. And we expect this year, at the end of this year, 2023, to reach $15 billion. Number two, we change our economy from service sector to productive sectors. I mean by productive that we now try to enlarge agriculture sectors and also industry sectors. Number three, now we choose the sectors which had added value, high added value, like information technology, like chemicals, like some items related green hydrogen, like silicon. Okay, so we have very clear idea about what we need in the future. And also Egypt already stopped to export any raw materials. It's finished. This story is finished. Now His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi already directed that to stop exporting raw materials, and now we are going to manufacturing. I'm going to give you only one example. Before, we export white sand.
Yes.
1 ton equal $20. Imported by Israel, Turkey, and China. Just washing this white sand, re-exported to us again with $200. And the machine which washing this sand, it doesn't cost more than $100,000. Can you imagine? This number one. Number two, for black sand, the same. We export and we didn't do any manufacturing in this. Number three, you can ask what's the added value? The added value, it's 150% more than if you export raw materials. So we call that now we are changing Egyptian economy from service to productive sectors. This number one. Number two, after 2016, we start reform, economy reform, and all macro indicators began to increase till Corona 2020. And after that, the erupting of Russian-Ukraine conflict in 24 of February 2022, I think. Okay, so that's why we have a challenge. This challenge, it doesn't come from us inside, it came from outside. And this affects not only Egypt, but all over the world. Going to your point, Ukraine-Russian conflict, is it bilateral conflict? No. I think it's international conflict. Can we call it the third war? You can say that. Because of what? It's Russia Against how many countries? 52 countries. They are supplying Ukraine with everything, starting from money, ending with weapons. So this conflict affected Europe more than any other bloc. Because of what? European economy, you can consider it as a service economy. So service economy by nature, if you have any conflict, any problems, it's go down immediately. This number one. But Russia, it's affected Russia, but with 1 or 2%. Because of what? It has long area.
Yes.
How many? Around 17 million kilometers.
Yes.
Okay, this number one. Number two, it has a lot of natural resources. Number three, Putin, Mr. Putin, he planned very well since the beginning of the conflict. He has some trade agreement with China and India that he is going to export his natural gas and oil with very low price. So he guarantees the customer instead of Europe. This and also I think that European society, they already reach standard of life, it's very high. This very high standard of life, they doesn't want to conflict.
Of course.
They doesn't want war. They doesn't want to problems. They would like to enjoy life. Would you think that a human being which like to enjoy his life would like to go for war against Russia? I don't think so. Number two, you can ask me, tell me who has the benefits from this war. Number one, it's America, United States of America. This is the biggest winner of this conflict. Number two, all countries which produce oil and gas. Okay. Number three, China and India, because they import energy from Russia with very low price. So that's why the competition of their standard, it will be high.
Yes.
So they can compete European industry and the American industry in the same time. Other countries like Africa, unfortunately, they affected negatively. Okay, go into Egypt. Would you think that Egypt has positive or negative? We have both sides. For negative aspects, we import inflation.
Yes.
Okay? And also we have a problem with supply chains. Okay? Number three, hot money. Already going back to their home to America. Would you think that in 1 month, hot money around $22 billion left our market, which affect our economy, in fact. Type. Go to positive side. What we gain from this? Yes, we gain. Number one, our export increased to Europe, to Arab countries, to Africa, to Asia. This number. Number two, West, they are thinking to add Egypt at the list of supply chain. Before we were excluded from supply chain list. Supply chain list, it was consist of China and southeast of Asian countries. Now they are thinking to add Egypt. So
Yes.
what it means that our export will increase to Europe and the States, and also we are going to attract to more investment, more foreign investment.
Yes.
Number three, the price of energy in Europe is going up, and most of the industries which consume a lot of energy, they are thinking to leave Europe, to go to which countries? Egypt or Southeast. So the last point which I think that we try to put Egyptian society on the right track and to remember our people in Egypt that be careful that we are moving from a step of relaxation to work and to competition.
Yes.
Why? Because most of international institutions, they mention that with 2030, Egypt will be in the list of the top 10 top economy all over the world.
Well, hopefully so, but Your Excellency mentioned the relation or the economic relations or the prospects of relations between Egypt and Asia in general. And it seems that there is a big direction towards foreign economic policy by Egypt towards the Asian continent. And this is manifested in a recent Shanghai summit earlier this month, and also the BRICS. So can you please shed more light on the prospect or the real serious potential of Egypt having such strong economic cooperation with Asia through the Shanghai summit, multipolarity and BRICS and everything else?
Number one, Egyptian foreign policy, it's for the interest of Egypt. So I'm looking for my interest, West or East, but we are making balance between West and the East. Number two, we already joined new development bank. That bank belongs to BRICS bloc. Number three, we already request to join BRICS bloc. And this, it will be discussed next month in South Africa. We could join BRICS. Okay, so BRICS, it's a start with 5 countries. Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa. And this bloc consists of 31% of global economy. So it's more than G7 and more than G20. Number two, their population. It's bigger than, and even international trade. Their trade with the world more than G7. So some people presume that the power will move from west to east. It could be, but not now. Not today or not tomorrow or next year. It will take time, 20 years or 30 years at least. Because of what? Already West countries already set up a kind of institution after Bretton Woods in 1944. More than 70 years, all the people, all the countries all over the world, they are following one system. It's a Western system. Would you think that it will be easy to change suddenly from West to East? It will take time. But most of the people think that unipolar, it will be end. We are going to multipolar global system. It will start by economics way, economic sides. Maybe it will follow by military or political aspects.
Your Excellency, if we do join the BRICS, it will definitely take Egypt economically up a few notches to a different level. But will it be a profitable, beneficial sort of leap right away, or will it have some sort of, apply some sort of pressure on the Egyptian economy to try and meet the requirements and standards of BRICS?
First of all, they welcome us, especially Russia and China. So you don't have any pressures. This number one. Number two, maybe you are going to avoid the problem of hard currency of dollars, because the exchange, it will be in national currency. So we don't need euro, we don't need dollar.
Would be the ruble and the yuan?
No, no, sir. It will be national currencies. You are going to deal with Egyptian pound and yuan, or Egyptian ruble, or Egyptian and rupiah in India. These national currencies. So this, it will relieve the pressure on the demand of dollars or euro or other hard currency. Number two, it will enlarge the market. In front of you, it will be the market of China, the market of India, and unfortunately,
Brazil.
Brazil. But for China and India, unfortunately, we don't have trade agreement between Egypt and China or Egypt and India. Our joining this BRICS bloc, it will help our export to penetrate Indian market and the Chinese market. This is one of the benefits. Number two, also you can import raw materials with low price. Number three, maybe we are going to learn from Asian culture to like work and also to like competition with others. And maybe we are going to compete India in IT sector, information technology. I'm going to tell you a very nice story. India started to export IT programs with $150,000. $150,000. Now, last year, how much?
Trillions, I imagine.
$150 billion. You see?
Yes.
Why? Because, as I mentioned, that India concentrate on sectors which create high added value. Number two, Indian people outside India, in Europe and in the States, they are supplying this to their home. And they help their people at home. So, shall we copy India? We can copy them. We can ask from our people in Europe and the States that we need their experience, we need their science, we need their help. We would like to copy Indian people. And in fact, when I was at Egyptian embassy in Delhi for 4 years, they are started to be afraid from competition. Can you imagine? They mentioned to me that we are afraid from Egyptian youth.
Well, it seems that the Egyptian youth are actually moving towards the ICT sector.
And also the Ministry of Telecommunication, in fact, they are doing good job in this respect. Is it enough? No. We have a smart village. How many smart villages we have in Egypt? Only one.
Just one.
No, it's not enough. We need at least 27 smart village. We have how many governors? We have 27. I want from my home, from my country, to set up smart village at each governor.
Yes.
This, we are going to enlarge the culture of IT. And also we are going to enlarge the culture of banking.
Yes, definitely.
And also, many things. You know that we have many good aspects if we concentrate in this. And it doesn't cost money. IT doesn't cost money. What they used need from your side, you need a table like this and a chair and a computer or laptop.
Yes.
It's very, but he can create added value, very high added value.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, as His Excellency mentioned, there are great economic prospects laying ahead on Egypt's path for the remainder of this year and beginning of 2024. Definitely the information communication technology is a sector that is worth investing in. Also the green economy and added value products, that is the main goal for the Egyptian economy. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my distinguished guest, His Excellency Dr. Mungi Ali Badr, the Minister Plenipotentiary and member of the Egyptian Society for the United Nations. Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
It's my pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Our pleasure, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for joining us.